Hello. This week is Parshas Vayigash, which is the penultimate parsha in the story of Yosef. And it carries on from the cliffhanger last week where we have the brothers standing there and Yosef's threatening with all sorts of things and Yehuda comes along and says, no. So this week we find out what Yehuda said. And it's also got lots of very emotional reunions. We've got Yosef telling his brothers who he is. We have Yosef meeting his father after such a long time. And lots of interesting things to talk about. So I'd like to look at one quite small point. Yosef tells his brothers who he is, and he sends them back to Canaan, to Eretz Israel, to collect Yaakov and the rest of the family. And he sends them on their way with wagons and with food obviously for the journey and presumably for the journey back again because there's a famine, so they won't be able to come with food from where they were. And also he gives them presents. So the verse says that he gives each brother a set of clothes, but Binyamin, he gives him not just the same as everybody else, but he gives him 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothes. So all the other brothers have 1 set of clothes, and Binyamin has 5 sets of clothes and 300 pieces of silver. And you think, hold on a minute, this is Yosef, right? Yosef, who was the one who his brothers hated because his father treated him differently and gave him a special outfit to wear, is giving his brother a special outfit to wear, 5 outfits rather than 1, and 300 pieces of silver. What on earth is going on? Surely he's the last person to do that, to treat one brother differently from the other brothers. So it's interesting to see, what does anybody say? What do the commentators or the classic sources say? Why did he do this? So there's quite a lot of different answers. There isn't necessarily one conclusive answer. So the Alshich says he gave the brothers a change of clothes to show that he'd forgiven them for stripping him of his colourful coat. And that's quite a theme all the way through, that in some way it's like a reminder of what had happened. Not a reminder like, look what you did to me, like a revengeful kind of reminder, but just a reminder, we've got past this, and to show that we've got past it, I'm going to give you clothes. Another explanation is that it was a reparation. When they thought that Binyamin last week was going to be taken away as a slave, they'd torn their clothes in grief in the same way as we do now as a sign of mourning. And so they had these ripped clothes, and he gave them another set to replace the ripped set of clothes. And so that would justify him giving a set to everybody, including Binyamin, but that would be everybody would have the same because they'd all ripped 1 set of clothes. So how did he get away with giving more presents to Binyamin? Well, one idea was that the brothers didn't mind. They weren't jealous because Binyamin was his full brother. They had the same mother as well as the same father. And he hadn't been involved in selling Yosef or throwing him in the pit or anything like that. And so in some way he wasn't culpable in the way that they were. On that kind of theme, some people suggest that what he was actually doing was testing them to see, when they said, we're so sorry and we regret having done this, he was testing them to see, did they really mean it? Had they actually repented properly? And one of the ways in which we're told you can do that is to put yourself or to put the other person in exactly the same situation again and see how they react. And a person who's really done complete teshuvah, who's repented completely, will react in a different way. So here we've got him favouring one brother over the others, which is the same situation, and they're reacting in a completely different way. They're not jealous at all. They go, hey, Binyamin, that's really nice, we're so happy for you. So they have actually properly repented. The Chizkuni explains that he gave him 5 sets. He enumerates why each of the 5 sets of clothes. One was because he tore his clothes, one was another set because he was his full brother with the same mother, another set because he embarrassed him by accusing him of theft, and the other 2 were the double portion, which like a thief pays back. They were the double portion for the 2 things that he'd done wrong against him. The Gemara discusses it from a more esoteric point of view, and it's also in the Midrashim, and it says Binyamin is the ancestor of Mordechai and Esther, and so the presents which he gave him were a hint to what will happen in the future when we read the story of Megillas Esther. So the money is a hint to the money that changes hands, which Haman gave to Achashverosh when he to get permission to kill the Jews, and then the Jews, as it were, reclaimed the money when they plundered everything after they fought back against the enemies. And the clothes are a hint to Mordechai, who's the direct descendant of Binyamin, who came out of the king's chamber at the end in 5 royal garments, robes, crown, cloak, all this kind of thing. And there's 5 garments which are listed there, and this is a reference to those 5 garments, the 5 set of clothes. The Kedushas Levi of Levi Yitzchak Berditchev suggests something similar. He looks at the Gemara's answer and he's not so crazy about it. And he says, well, what he's actually suggesting is not just the 5 garments, but also there were common experiences that he and Binyamin and Mordechai shared. So they both came to power through a dream. They both served a king. There are various. He pulls up various ideas, and he says these are things. It's not just referring to Mordechai coming out of the chamber, but to more concrete examples of things which they shared. So we can tie it certainly into the Purim story. If you want to tie it into Hanukkah, which is a bit more seasonal, there was another idea that this 5-fold portion which Binyamin received is called Chamesh Yodos, 5 hands. That's how it's referred to in the literature. And in Al Nissim, which we say during Hanukkah, we say 5 times that God delivered something into somebody else's hands, the strong into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the wicked to the hands of the righteous, and the sinners into the hands of those who learn Torah. So those 5 hands correspond in some way to this 5-fold portion that Binyamin received. So I think all these ideas are quite interesting. I'm not sure that any of them actually answer the question properly. I suspect it's probably some combination of the two. These sort of ideas that this particular action presages something which happens many hundreds of years later is not one which we're necessarily so comfortable with. I think the idea of seeing whether they were jealous if they reacted and they would react in the same way, or of actually repaying him because of the torn clothes and being so happy to see him because he was his full brother, I think those are probably more likely to be the answers. Not that we can never really know the exact answer. I think that one of the things we can see from here is that even people who are considered to be very, very righteous, like Yosef, are still human underneath. And so, he'd forgiven the brothers, but there must have been. It's very hard to have absolutely no bad feelings towards them at all, which he didn't have towards Binyamin. Plus the fact that Binyamin was the brother who shared the same mother as him, and we can see there's a closeness between them because we're told that when in the middle of the parsha, when it lists all the people who came down to Egypt, it lists the 5 children of Binyamin, and they're the ones who are called Mupim and Chupim and names like that, and they've all got names which in some way the commentators say they all reminded him. When he named them, they were names which referred to Yosef. So he's having these children thinking his brother's dead, and he's naming them names which will remind him of his brother. And Yosef, when he finds Binyamin again, is very, very happy to see him and gives him a reward. So I think that this is one of the things we can see from it. And I think also, looking at this question, I think this is one of the times when the question is better than the answers. Have a good Shabbos.